one circumstance. If I had a new player sitting across from someone who I knew well, or an advanced player who told me that they didn't mind backing it up, I would say go ahead and back up. Because that actually has been one of the more common experiences I've seen, where a more advanced player will get called over, and a judge will get called over to this really offset match, and then, you know, I just look at the more advanced player and they're all like, I don't really care. It's just a pre-release. We'll go ahead and back it up even if it costs me the game. And they're really, really good about it. And so as long as the player who is getting essentially screwed by my judging is all like, yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
Does the rules allow for him to back up?
And the rules? Well, this is the interesting thing, is that when it comes...
So what in the rules allows you to back it up if the player says it's okay?
I am the judge.
Actually, the head judge.
The head judge. No,
if she says islands tap for black mana, they tap for black mana.
And if you question it, don't even... No. I read a really interesting article. Eric actually pointed it out to me, where there was one of the head judges of the headiness of all Wizards of the Coastness, like some schmuckety-muck that I don't even...
Some
schmuckety-muck. He wrote an article talking about how to judge at RRELs, and one of the things he mentioned is that because the emphasis is on fun play, because the emphasis is on creating a place where people learn how to magic, deviating from the rules in order to help keep that environment is going to happen a lot, and that judges should accept that. Sticking too hard to the rules is something that may need to be avoided for RRELs only. And it also mentioned that the IPG... No, that's not it.
The Interaction Procedure Guide?
Yeah, absolutely not something that L1s should be using.
No, absolutely not.
And so the Magic Tournament rules get bent a lot more at RRELs, even if it's not considered appropriate by the rules. I guess you could say that the best place to look for it would be in the Judging at Regular. There is a paragraph or two about the importance of creating a friendly environment. But that's the closest I could point to.
There's also that sentence in one of the documents that says if players are able to come to a solution, you do not need to intervene.
Mm-hmm.
And that one's in the MTR, right? No, that one is in the IPG, isn't it?
I think it's in the IPG.
I think that was in the IPG.
Oh. All right.
Woo woo.
We're live, guys.
We are live. How long have we been live?
I wanted to get a little bit of this conversation in.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to Judge Classes today. My name is Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Kaya, our other judge. Double? Nope. It's all or nothing here.
All or nothing.
All or nothing.
Patrick in the back. You're five. Thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for tuning in. If anybody's watching, of course, we always want to thank this wonderful store that we're at, Paragon City Games.
Ooh.
They're the best, and that light is really bright. We have a guest speaker here. Oh, guest.
A guest.
Welcome.
Just a guest. Please.
I saw something interesting. Like last week's video on the Facebook got 67 views.
Ooh, that's
the
awesome.
On the Facebook.
That's good. On the Book of Faces, as I call it. Anybody remember what we talked about last week? Speaking of last week, you specifically, what did we talk about? I know it's been a whole 7 days or something.
Was it?
That's a long time for
wasn't.
college student.
Was the standard? Keywords and standard.
Was that last week?
Nope.
Oh,
That was
the
the week
week
before.
that was the week before. Lose my mind.
Last week we did
Yeah,
the
'cause-
hodgepodge of things. 3 lessons.
We did. What was the main one?
We were just talking about it just a second ago.
Wasn't it about I don't even know what that means.
That's because you weren't here last week.
Right.
Gosh. We talked about judging irregular, remember?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
rules for RELs.
Did we do replacement effects also?
Did replacement
That one
effects.
last week.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. What else did we talk about? What was the last one?
The other thing.
I don't remember what the other thing is. That's why I was looking at you, Jeremiah.
You taught it. We sure hope you remember.
I taught a lot of things.
I don't remember either. Either way, doesn't matter. Those were the
We
two big
did
ones.
The jar, the replacement effects. What was the other one? I forgot this when.
Oh,
It
two
was
at a giant, that's what it
replacement
was.
and offension.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
two-headed
Giant.
giants. That's
Two-headed
right.
giant.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
That's
Not
it.
super important. We do need to know about it, but it's not super important.
It exists.
There's
Yeah.
only like 2 or 3 questions
Yeah.
on the test about it.
It's no big deal. It's kind of intuitive. We'll go over a little bit of two-headed giant today too, as a reminder. But
How
that's
many-
mostly just like
How many
to
more
do it.
classes are there going to be?
So we have today and then next week. And did we decide if we want to stream Eric's lesson next week then?
I don't
Think
know.
so?
Like,
I want to record it.
We're streaming it then.
okay.
What is
Story
it?
spoken. It's a surprise. It's not in this little thing that we use as a reference. It's an addition that
It's a
Eric
special
added, and
lesson.
Eric is great because of it.
It
It's
makes
super,
a
it's the best
huge
lesson the whole time.
difference.
It's the best
Is it how to
lesson.
do take the test or whatever?
You cheater. How did you know? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Hey, look, I could use pins this time, Jeremiah. Are you jealous?
I'm so jealous.
Ooh.
Sweet.
Careful if you
It's like-
and say take away everyone's marker.
Feel free to
That's great. All right. Anyway, we're going to talk about the MTR today. Anybody know what the MTR stands for? Without cheating.
The magic table of rules.
Table.
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 Yeah.
It's an interesting way of
Yeah.
putting it. I'm going to call it that from now on. The magic table rules.
Really good 2 out of 3. Though.
Yeah.
Magic tournament rules.
Tournament rules. Yeah, that's a good
So we're going
word.
to talk about the magic tournament rules. There's the tournament. Anyway,
Rules are down there.
so we have a bunch of different things in the MTR. We're in a really cool site. We have the actual MTR, which you can just download from Wizards. If you just go to Google and put in MTR Magic, it'll take you to this website on Wizards' website. You can download it in a PDF. It's really kind of lawyer speaky, as I call it. Is that the right way to put it? Lawyer speak?
Official.
Yeah. There's just a lot of
jargon.
A lot of jargon. The other one I recommend is on the Judge blog. Is that what they call it? The blog?
Wiki?
Yeah.
Wiki and blog. They have a notated, is that how you say it?
Annotated.
Annotated, that's what I was thinking of. Version of the MTR. So they just have comments basically on how kind of clarify things. So that's what I'm going to be using today.
And if you Google search annotated MTR,
it will come up also.
it'll come up.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, same thing. You can also just go look on the judge classes. If you go judge classes, it's in there also. So I'm going to use the annotated MTR today rather than doing a PowerPoint because we don't really have any cards that have to do with the Magic Tournament rules. Can you think of any, Jeremiah, off the top of your head?
I mean, it's just rules, right? Like,
It really is. It's pretty straightforward. Just like Jeremiah said last week, he said read the jar. This week I say don't necessarily have to read the MTR because it's pretty long.
Read sections 2, 10, and Appendix B.
Yeah, 210 Appendix B. So those that we're gonna go over 2 today. Some of it actually doesn't apply. There's a lot of deck checks and deck registration. That's more competitive RL. But we're gonna go over most of that today. It's all gonna go really quick. Just gonna give you a bunch of information. So we're gonna start with match structure.
match structure.
Anybody know how a match goes? How does someone win a match? In a tournament, typically.
Normally it's first 2 wins.
First 2 wins. That's key. Yeah, remember we talked about that when you judged. It's not the first. It's not
Best
the
of
best.
2, I think is what I said.
Best of 3. I think you said.
Oh,
what you
best
said.
of
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
I don't remember how I said it.
Is it just moving slow?
Oh, I was gonna
You're
do it.
good. So that's the key part to the match. So first of 2 wins, not best of 3. Then. See, that's where that says. So, a Magic match consists of a series of games that are played until one side is one set of games, usually 2 drawn. Games do not count towards this goal. So, if you draw a game, it doesn't count towards that. So, this is talking about if the round ends when the time ends, they can't start another game at that point. So, if we're Magic players, that
Be
the
5
whole
additional
spiel.
turns.
5 additional turns. We talk about that too here. You can't start a new game once that happens. If you finish a game, then you kind of report as it happened. So if there's intentional draws or if there's regular draws, you gotta report it the way it is. Come on, Talon, join us.
I was actually I'm working right now, but I might go in.
Bye-bye. Thanks for joining. So this talks about if both players have equal wins, then it is a draw. So like 1-1-1.
So what if we are shuffling for game 3 when time is called?
Ooh, shuffling. So where are they at? Have they started a
They
game?
have not started the game.
What are they doing?
They are in their 3 minutes of sideboarding and preparing to start.
What's that
the
called?
game.
You don't know yet because we talked about it later. They're in their pregame procedures, so they technically haven't started their game yet. It's not until you've drawn your
Excellent
hand.
Said you're keeping
resolve mulligans.
Yeah.
What
So-
if
So the game would finish.
So if you
We
drew your
would report
hand
from there.
and you decide to both decide to mulligan,
Then you have officially. If you both decide to keep your hands, then you the
game
game
starts.
starts immediately. It's considered.
but if you both
started.
decide to mulligan,
You're
Then you
still
just keep
mulliganing.
mulliganing until you
even
resolve
if time's
mulligans.
called.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
what if I have presented my deck and my opponent is still shuffling? Has the game started?
No.
No.
The
No.
opponent has percent of their
Not,
deck.
they haven't finished it, right?
They have to resolve the mulligans as well.
Well, not necessarily. We haven't mulliganed yet. We haven't drawn our
Oh,
opening
okay.
hand. I've just shuffled and presented my deck,
Oh,
and they are still shuffling before
When time is
presenting.
called, then there's.
You're still in the middle of
So
pregame
then-
procedures, right?
No,
No.
because you have presented your deck. You aren't able to change things in it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So the game has started.
Okay.
So that's the actual.
Yep.
opponent.
Once you present your deck, it's
The game has started.
the game has started.
That's not what it says there anywhere else. But that's
Oh.
okay.
Well,
You could be right.
let's go with what it says here.
Tournament may change. So like this whole thing is subject to change depending on the tournament organizer. So sometimes you can do like the what do they call it? First one of one win, like whoever wins it fast. Just like in Two-Headed Giant, you only have one game for one match. Kind of the same thing. Similar. You can also do like best of 5 for like top 8 matches, or like can't think of the word right now. Will you scroll up a little bit,
Yeah.
please?
Up.
No. Yeah, sorry. Like this. That's it. Yeah. Or death matches. What do they call them?
Sudden death?
Sudden death. That's what I'm thinking of.
Deathmatch.
All right. So, and then this just talks about that it needs to be reported to the DCI as like matches and as it actually played out. So even if your opponent like concedes to you, and say you're in game 3 and you're like, oh, then time is called, you're in the 5th turn. You're like, oh, I don't really need to stay anyway, so I'm going to concede to you. I'm going to leave anyway. So it needs to be reported as it is. So he lost that game because he conceded. You won the other one, and then he won one. So
It's 2-1.
it's 2-1. If it goes to turns, then it would be, and the game
1-1.
hasn't finished.
1-1.
1-1-1. Cool.
Intentional draws are 0-3.
Good job.
And what if this is game 2?
What if it's game 2?
I won game 1, you didn't win because we drew in game 2.
1-0-1. The player who has the most wins will win the round.
That's right. So, what if it's like you win the first one, I win the second one, and then I do some weird combo and it draws, and then for some reason the game state kills us both at the same time, so the game finishes.
You have a bunch more time left.
You draw, right? Because you draw, that can
Yeah,
happen.
you draw that match.
Okay, and then we go to the third one. Fourth game.
Fourth game.
Fourth game now. Yeah, fourth game. And then that goes to time. How would you report that one?
How's that? Where are we at in the 4th game? That matters.
Does the fourth?
Does the 4th game start before time? Like what?
So the fourth one goes to time. It goes to the 5th, through the 5th turn.
We started game 4 with 5 minutes left, and
Yeah.
neither of us comboed off.
Yeah.
That's a draw. So it's 1-1-2.
Yeah, and 2 draws.
Sweet.
Alright, cool. Alright. Just remember the key to that is like reported as it is. Don't like make your opponent have a 2-0 win or something like that.
Sure.
Anyway, let's go. We can go ahead and close that and go to play draw roll. Anybody familiar with play draw roll? Has to do with who goes first. who's on first? Isn't that how it actually
What's
goes?
on second?
Where's
So
the-
the map you said to use a
I don't know
random
what's
method to
on
determine who goes on first. Who goes first? If it's in like top 8 matches, then it goes by ranking.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much it. Just remember that if you win the roll or you win the coin toss, then you have to decide before you draw your first hand. If you decide to look at your hand before you decide, you have said that you are playing first. So that's basically what it means. Scroll up, see if there's anything
So
I
if
missed.
you don't declare, it's default play first.
Play first, yep. So assume that you're playing first. And then remember the first player always skips their first draw step. You already know that.
What is the exception to that, though?
Multiplayer games that are not two-headed giant.
Two-headed giant, you don't draw.
Yeah. Same thing.
Cool.
I was thinking.
Go to close that.
Yep.
There is a on to the next one at the bottom there.
Oh yeah, procedures.
Oh my gosh, my life is complete.
You are the best, Jeremiah. All right, pregame procedures. We talked about this. So they must kind of a key. This is a big one actually. They need to be finished in a timely manner, even at regular REL. So if you're in between games and your opponent's taking a long time to decide, like you won the first one, they lost that one.
Trying to be a strategic thing by shuffling
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
good. They
Nope.
even in regular REL, this needs to be considered that they need to take a reasonable amount of time. Keep that in mind for
What-
the pregame procedures.
What is the time limit?
There's no official time limit. Is there?
Is there official
No,
time
there's
limit?
not.
Why isn't there an official time
Because
limit?
then that would be
Because
rules
players
layered.
abuse.
Yeah, they will. They will. Yeah, they will go to the time limit
Yep.
to abuse it.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So sideboarding happens in pregame procedures, right? If sideboarding is allowed. So anybody familiar with sideboards? How many cards are supposed to be in sideboards while we're talking about it?
Up to 15.
Up to 15. Yeah.
Up to 15. So can I have 62 cards in my main deck? And 13 cards in my sideboard? Sure. Sure, why not, right? Alright. And that's game 2 I was talking about, dry sideboard. So as long as they have no more than 15 cards in their main board, no less than
No less
60
than 60.
cards, right?
Because you could have 80 cards in your main and still
Absolutely.
have 15
You
in
can
your
play
side.
with your
maximum
sideboard
one.
game.
And still have 15 in your side?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, then you shuffle their decks, of course. Then presenting the deck is part of the pregame procedures. And then you decide if you go first or second. Then each player draws 7 cards. One thing key about drawing the 7 cards or your opening hand is that players can like put it off the top of their library and like put it in the piles in front of them. It's not considered drawing the cards as long as they don't like see it. It's a way of counting, so
Mhm.
people can't like call a judge and be like, oh, you drew too many cards when they put 8 cards in front of you, because they actually didn't see it. So keep that in mind. And then each player, let's not read this. Mulligans, how do they work?
Then
Not really.
Is it going to like start?
The player going first will decide if they would like to keep their hand or mulligan.
Okay, and then
Then
second player.
The second player
chooses after that.
choose
Okay.
to either keep their hand or
They
mulligan.
mulligan.
Repeat the process X time until both players decide to keep their hand.
So you decide, and then you mulligan and finish your mulligan procedures, and then I decide, and then finish your mulligan. Then I finish my mulligan procedures. So do I get to decide? Say I'm going to be like, oh, I see my first 7. I'm going to mulligan. I see my first 6. I'm going to mulligan. And then oh yeah, I'll keep my 6. And then I go give it to you.
And you
You
look
said
at
you
your
said
7.
keep your.
So I don't keep my.
6.
I keep my 6. So I'm at my 6.
Isn't it
Or
declare
5.
and then declare and then draw?
Is that what it is?
I'm asking. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think that's
okay.
That's
what
what I
it is.
thought it was.
So,
Yeah.
so how it actually works is I decide if I'm gonna mulligan, and then you decide you're gonna mulligan because I'm going first,
Mhm.
and then you guys mulligan at the same time,
Right.
and then you guys do it again.
Yeah, mulliganing happens at the same time, but the
Yeah.
players declare.
Declare
They
an order.
decide
In-
whether or
in
not
their
they're
order,
mulliganing
in their turn order.
in their turn. order.
Yes.
So it's not because a lot of people get that confused with like at Moto, because in Moto, they like you go down to how many of mulligans you go down to like 4 cards before you pass priority to them
Mm-hmm.
to mulligan. where live Magic, you just look at the first 7 and be like, oh, I'm gonna mulligan. Then you decide, and then you guys both mulligan at the same
How
time.
come it works that way on online?
It's a way of speeding
It's
things
just
up
easier
online.
programming.
Yeah,
it's
it's
the
the
way
way
priority
program
pass. Yeah. Am I right with all that?
Yeah.
Cool. Up. Oh, please. Thank you. Well, I went too far, I think.
The game is considered to have begun once players have completed taking mulligans.
So both players have to finish mulligans
So if
once they presented their deck, right?
yeah, so you present your deck,
To
it's
finish
shuffled,
mulligans,
and
yeah.
then you mulligan, draw mulligans. So if you are in the process of mulliganing when time is called, that is it.
It's
Ooh,
done. Yeah.
man. We
It's done.
cheated in the last
Cool.
single thing. The
Confession.
pre-release, yeah. We were
Confession.
cheated. We were cheater faces. We played our 5 turns to a draw.
All right. What are we talking about? Control back up.
We're talking about conceding or intentional drawing
intentional
games.
drawing. Yeah. So we talked about conceding a little bit before, right? You can choose to concede at any time, right?
Yeah.
Anytime you want.
Yep. Scoop. I'm done.
It's not very good though, because like it says here, if you like consistently like decide to leave a game or concede a game, you can be penalized for it. So because it's not good for the playing atmosphere. The time that comes
one
up the
likes a
most.
quitter, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. No. The time that comes up the most, I think, when it comes to conceding, is before we used to have a rule about deck registration and like seal pools, and people would like open a pool,
Yeah.
which isn't technically at that time it wasn't their pool, and then they would see money cards in it, and they had the right to concede and take all the product that they had in front of them, the legal product that they had in front of them, which talks about that, and that was theirs at that time, so they can leave. But now you open your own product and then you pass it, and then someone else registers it, so it's not an issue because you still
Get your
keep
stuff.
keep the card that you open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or things come pre-registered.
So another big
Yeah.
concern about that is like drafts also. The integrity of drafts can be really taken apart, like when people like open a really good card and they're like, oh, can I buy another pack and put it in the pool? It's not really good. You shouldn't do that. If you want to keep that card, you have the right to concede at any time, but the store's probably gonna be like, now we have to do 7-man drafts from then on. It's kind of up to the store, honestly, but it's not encouraged to do that because it really messes with the way the pools
flow.
work.
The other reason it's not encouraged is because you can open your pack and say, this is a crap pack, I
Yep.
don't want anything in it, I would like
Yep.
to buy in another pack.
Yeah, and I can't say that you can't do that if you guys allow me to like take out a really expensive card. I mean, what's the difference between an expensive card and
Bunch of garbage.
a bunch of garbage? You know, I mean, the cards in
Yeah.
the eyes
In
of
ways
the
it's
game,
yeah,
they're the
it's
same.
one-
I mean,
Yeah.
it's the
Each
same.
card is worth
Yeah.
a 15th of a pack.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the bird's eye.
Plus, if you just
Well-
drafted to pull cards you want and not to actually build a deck with, that screws up the flow of the draft too,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So if you're drafting
Yep.
for filling your collection
but
and bail,
But
you're not
don't
even trying to play it.
Don't forget that you do own those cards. Like those are yours. If you choose to concede those cards that are in front of you legally, like you can't take like a half of a pack from someone else because you had it in front of you. But the amount of cards that you're supposed to have at that time, you do own. Those are yours. It does say that specifically in here.
I believe at some point it says if you are unable or unwilling to continue the draft, the picks are selected for you randomly for the remainder of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore.
Okay.
That was that way. If something happened like that happens anymore, they're just taken out of the draft and it's
Okay.
7-man. Because it used to be that judges would draft for you from the remaining if you decided to drop out of a draft. But it's too interruptive to have someone to pick random cards. So it's just better to have 7 people or however many people in that pod. What else do we need to talk about conceding? Filling out match slips. That's an important part.
Yeah.
So when you're filling out match slips, so as soon as you fill out the match slip, the match that's considered done. Like you can't fix it. Like whatever you put on there, that's how the match is going to be done. And also, if there's not any match slips, as soon as you guys step away from the table, the game is finished after that. So All right. I think we talked about intentionally drawing and like how to record it. Remember like bribery and cohesion. I can't think of how that word.
Concession.
What's the word I'm looking for though?
Collusion.
Collusion. That's it. I knew I said it wrong. Collusion and bribery. So don't like give up matches for packs or something else entirely.
There are
Cash money.
whatever.
There are
cash
3
money.
options for that, right? As far as like, say you're in the finals of a PPTQ.
Okay.
Um,
Wow, this has never happened to me before.
I know, right? I was super close.
I've been there.
You like when like there's stuff like an invite, right?
Sure.
Mhm.
Someone can take all the prizes and not the invite. They can play it out, right? Or there's an even split of the prizes, and invite is to whoever, you know.
So it's really dicey the way to do that.
Like it's yeah.
So Jeremiah worked PPTQs a lot. He and I both do that. You can split prizes. It's absolutely legal. 'Cause there's nothing to stop you to.
The product is yours.
Yeah.
What you choose to do with it after, we have no say.
Yes.
Which,
But
yeah.
the best way to handle that kind of stuff is make sure it's known to everyone before a match starts. Most of the time you want to do it before the top 8 starts. Just so it's known beforehand. So someone can't be, so there's no confusion of like, hey, I'm giving you all of the prize support for this match. Because like sometimes it can look that way, is if a whole box is given to second place and just the invite is given to someone else. Sometimes that it can look like I'm going to concede the match for you to get all the prize support because you don't care about it or whatever.
Yeah.
So it should just be decided all beforehand, and then play Magic to determine the way the games go. We don't want to determine outcomes of games by other than playing Magic. That's the key part.
So,
That's the
yeah.
number one issue I ever run into is those that flip the coin or roll the dice because they don't want to draw.
Yep.
here's my
Spiel.
on it. Yeah. The prizes are yours to choose what to do with.
Okay.
If you would like to split the prizes, you are more than welcome to, as long as the prize split is in no way tied to the results of the match.
Mhm.
So if you offer, I would like to split prizes, great. Would you like to concede to me? Totally separate note since we've already agreed to split prizes.
Mhm.
Yes. Would you like to split prizes in a 70-30% loser, or not loser? Would you like to split prizes in a 70-30% for one of them? Yes. Okay, will you concede to me? Yes. We will split the prizes 70-30.
Okay.
It's
So it's
Sure.
okay to give numbers? Like
The question
You hear how
is
he's wording
how
it.
you're drawing
It's
it.
the order of...
Don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't even do that. Like, don't try because it really depends on the judge. If I heard that, I'd be like, you guys are both DQ'd.
yeah, see like
gone.
that was
me.
the experience where like
But Jeremiah's an L2, so he knows it better than me.
we use like a wrong, like a poor choice of word, not intending to be, you know, shady or colluding.
But you don't even want to deal with that.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, yeah.
Because then
If all it
you know,
smells
then
like-
DQs happen and it's just
it's
garbage. Yeah, like
Just don't do it. Just don't. Just split it in normal ways, like we always do. Typically, just like keep it even. If you guys want to split it in other ways,
Figure that out.
don't
Yeah, in
do it.
this scenario,
just don't do it. Do it at the
player
tournament.
1 and player 2 were friends, and player 1 didn't think he could go to the event. So it was like, yeah, it was just
That's up to him. I mean, we
Yeah.
can't determine that. Just don't let it determine outcomes
Yes.
of matches. That's
Yep.
the key. Don't let it determine it. So if a player refuses to play, then he or she is considered conceding. So,
sure.
all right, let's go to the next one. I'm done with that thing.
Play.
Done
Yeah.
with freaking.
How do you get to that point?
Well, Judge, I don't like your ruling, so I'm not going to play. Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, what are we talking about this time?
That'll really show.
End of match procedure.
End of
Do
match
we have
procedures.
any questions, comments in
We already
the
did this.
stream.
What?
We already did this. Yeah.
We
Do we have any
did-
questions?
Yeah.
Oh, we
No.
just-
Yeah, let me add a share. Got 3 viewers currently.
So why don't you talk about that? If a player reaches time, we have 5 additional turns. We talked about that. The usual means that one player takes 3 turns and the other one takes 2, depending on active player or non-active player. It's pretty normal.
There's more
team-
to that.
What?
The player takes 3, the other takes 2, but if the player's taking extra turns, that
Oh yeah,
can
yeah,
affect
that's
it.
true. Yeah, absolutely. Forgot about that. Yeah, so like say for instance I have some part the water valve and I do it in time, I can sometimes take more than the 3 and 2 because then I take a turn, but there's still only 5 turns. So sometimes you would only get 1 or 0, depending on it. So that's not. It is affected by that. Thank you.
Team tournaments.
Team tournaments. So just 2 at a giant. Use 3 turns instead of 5.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Once time is called, no more games should begin. We talked about that. If a game is incomplete at the end of an additional turn, it's considered a draw. If a judge assigns time extension, obviously, if you're familiar with time extensions, then the time keeps going, and then once that time extension expires, then you would start the end of game procedures stuff, end of match procedures.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then single elimination rounds cannot end in a draw. So that's like top 8s and other weird things.
Death matches.
Is deathmatch on there? Did it say that? Where's the death matches? Dang it.
If you are playing a sudden death match, it can't end in a draw.
Yeah.
Do you know how that would end up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life totals. Life totals come in effect with those. Sudden death. This
No,
is
that
the
is-
life totals are used because things like board state, position cannot be objectively judged
Mhm.
and can be dependent on cards in hand and library manipulation, such as the most common win condition. The life total is used as the ultimate tiebreaker to the unfortunate.
Detriment.
I can't. That is unfortunate.
Of decks,
I
yeah.
was making sure I read that right. Of decks that utilize the alternate win conditions, poison, mill, etc. So life totals can be used in death matches. There was an interesting story about that back, I don't know, 5+ years ago, maybe less, at a PPTQ. The key to like death matches is that if you decide to use sudden death, that you need to announce it like before top 8 begins or before the tournament begins.
Announce it before the tournament begins,
Yeah.
because if top 8 started, people might be upset.
Yeah. Tournament begins is the key. Like if it starts getting really late, it's the best thing. Anyway, there was a crazy local thing happen here with death matches.
Here?
Was it a fist fight?
Not this store, but
Seems shady.
no fist fight.
Here.
No fist fights.
Oh,
All right,
Extensions.
we're gonna talk about time extensions. We're good there. So you can actually add turns. That's the only thing I remember from this that was really good. Judges can actually add an additional turn rather than just extensions. So that's kind of nice. Go ahead.
If your judge call takes more than a minute, add a time
minute.
extension.
Add more. Yeah, exactly. Then coverage, slow play can happen if a judge adds a turn rather than a time extension. Then we're going on. Anybody familiar with slow play? We talked about that. If you're playing too slow, you can get a warning for it in competitive REL. If you're in regular REL, you just get a talking to. Shake my fist at
Exactly
it.
that.
Technically, if you have enough problem behaviors like slow play, and I do mean enough, you're supposed to warn them repeatedly.
Move on.
Then you can give them a game loss. But they try to get you not to do that.
Keep going. One more. Appeals to head judge. We're not going to talk about deck registration, deck checks, because those are not really used in
Those
regular
won't
REL.
be on the
Won't be
test.
relevant. Appeals to head judge. We talked about this a little bit. So, if there's more than one judge at a tournament, then there's a head judge. If there's only one, then you're the head judge if you're judging it. So appealing to a head judge doesn't really work because they're already talking to the head judge. So, as a player, you have the right to appeal to the head judge, but you have to. The key to that is you have to wait until a ruling is made before you can appeal to the head judge. You can't just be like, oh, I don't like this judge that's coming up. Can I just appeal immediately
No.
to the head judge? And then in like large premier level tournaments, they have what's called like
Those judges.
thank you. That's what I was looking for. Appeals judges. So they're just judges that take head judge calls and they make the appeals calls, and their word is final. Because there's normally one head judge for big GPs, or maybe two, depending on what's going on. But they're too busy doing other current stuff. They can't take every appeal. So there's other ones that take appeal judges. Anyway. Alright, we're done. Done with that. Dropping from a tournament. We talked about this already. So we can go to the next part. Just make sure the scorekeeper knows. I think this is the only thing we missed. There's times that you can do it at any time. If you do it while the match is going, just make the scorekeeper know. You want to do it between the matches and make sure they drop you before the next pairings go up. Otherwise, it screws
It
things
is super
up.
frustrating
Yeah,
to,
'cause then you have
find
two
an
people
opponent
with
next
bias.
round. Yeah, it's 2 buys.
Tony did that last night.
Yeah, Tony did it last night.
Because I did not want to play Magic last night. That's weird, isn't it?
Weird.
Electronic devices. I was in a weird mood. I wanted to be home.
This is notes.
Oh, is this?
Taking notes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Take
yeah.
notes.
Thank you. This is actually really good. If you have a chance to read this one, read it fully. So you can take notes while you're doing it. You can take notes between games about matches if you want. But those notes that you take between matches can't be looked at during the game. That's what it says. Any notes that you have during the game has to be like a blank sheet and available to see by anybody. So your opponent or the judge. Your opponent does not have the right to see the judge between the notes that you take between the games, but the judge does have access to those notes. And what did you have comment-wise?
Actually, keep going. Let me check on
Okay.
something really
And
cool.
your notes don't have to make sense to the opponent.
Yes, they do not have
If you
to make.
can write in Klingon, you
Yep.
are awesome.
Absolutely right.
Good for you.
Yep.
Go in Elvish.
But they do have to make sense to the judge for the ones in between the games, right?
They don't have to make sense to the judge, but if the judge asks you
What
to
you mean?
explain them,
Yeah.
you have to honestly explain them.
Okay. So keep going
Yep.
up. I know there's one thing I missed. Between
There it
games.
is. You did say just one minor thing incorrectly.
Oh.
Players do not. Wait.
I know I didn't say anything correctly. I looked over this 3 times.
Oh, that's okay. That's weird.
Did you misunderstand it?
I don't know. It is not written very well. It says at the beginning of a match, each player's note sheet must be empty and must remain visible throughout the match, but players do not have to explain or reveal notes to other players.
What were you caught up on?
Well, I thought that you didn't have to reveal your notes to the other players.
Yep. And I know why you did think that way, because Eric thought it that way, and that's the way we were taught. The way you were thinking. But he and I hashed it out a little bit. It wasn't really hashing it out. We just talked about it. Because I remember reading it, and I was like, yeah, they do have to be visible, and they are known information to everyone, the notes that are taken down for everyone, because you have to be able to like verify live totals and how you got to them, and the notes are normally taken on that same live pad, and they do have to be blank, and they have to be visible. The only way you can check whether or not they have strategic information in those notes is whether or not everyone can see it. So they do have to be visible.
They do have to be visible, but apparently you don't have to reveal them?
You do.
So
But
You
it-
do. They are known information, so.
your opponent can't say, "Give me your note sheet. I want to read over it."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more for clarification
Yeah.
on known information.
Yeah.
You can go over each other's notes, but like they can't.
They do have to be
They
visible,
can't
though.
yeah.
It can't be like hidden underneath like something
play
else.
mat.
Yeah, play mat or something.
Yeah.
It does have to be visible. Your life total has to be in a way that you can verify it.
Mhm.
Okay.
So anyway, it's kind of confusing, but it makes sense if you think about it logically. You want to prevent cheating as much as possible. I think I'm done with that. Was there one thing at the bottom I missed? I think I am.
Take the notes at a reasonable pace.
Yeah.
Like if you play, surgical extraction, and you're looking through your opponent's deck, you can't write down every card in their deck.
And every word on it.
Exactly.
It's reasonable reasonable pace. Like you can write down like, oh, this is a sideboard card they brought in. Like quick, quick notes.
Yeah, note like, oh, naturalize is in
Yeah.
the deck, but
Mhm.
you can't go naturalize, lightning bolt,
Lightning
firebolt, stoneforge miss. This is a very weird deck. Mountain.
And with that note, also with the notes between the rounds, you can't really have like extensive notes for that either. Should be only like maybe 1 or 2 sheets at the
Mhm.
very most. If you have like a novel, you don't want someone like trying to find their information between games and it's like 10, 15 pages long. It needs to be a reasonable amount. Another thing,
This is an interesting one.
players and spectators,
The one above it.
use of electronic devices,
Boogie boards.
boogie boards are fine.
Yeah.
Boogie boards are fine in regular REL. Competitive REL, it's questionable.
We will get to that more when we get to the electronic devices
Yep.
section.
Okay.
Alright, so players and spectators taking notes. So during drafts, that's what this is specifically about. Key. Spectators should not be taking notes during drafts unless you're like, there's one exception in here, and that's like media people for big events. That's very rare. I've seen this. It's not. There's some serious strategic advantages you can give your people, and it's really hard to regulate, like when they can talk to each other and when they can't.
Because you leave
So-
to go build your. You don't
Yeah,
sit at the
build your
table.
deck, yeah. So if you have like your team member taking notes while they're drafting, like you can give some big advantages. So yeah, I strongly disagree people taking notes while they're doing it. But anyway, that's it. It's not allowed. But in draft, don't take notes while you're doing it. Even like yourself taking notes on what cards passed, you can't do that. You actually can't like refer to any notes until you're done building your deck. So that's what we were talking about. Artistic modifications. They're acceptable. Minor strategic advantage is acceptable. It's kind of up to the head judge though, ultimately.
I enjoy the
the
annotation there.
Annotation, Phineas Sensei's Divining Top Intricate Mages.
Is okay.
Is okay.
Writing the latest strategic article on a
It's
place is not.
It's kind of the two
What if it was a
extremes
swamp?
there.
Like-
Two
No.
extremes. But yeah, ultimately it's up to the head judge.
Island for sure, but swamp.
No.
Don't miss your triggers.
All right, electronic devices.
Speaking of electronic
Favorite
devices,
ones. So at competitive and professional rules enforcement level, which we're not talking about, during drafting, deck construction, and playing of matches, players may not use electronic devices capable of taking and storing notes, communication with other players, or accessing the internet, with exceptions of taking brief personal calls with opponents' permission. So if they can take notes, store notes, they can communicate with other people, or you can access the internet, you cannot use it. You can take calls briefly with your opponent's permission, but that's just like emergency only, hopefully.
And please, please, please note that this is for competitive and professional. Do not try to keep this rule going at a regular Friday night match.
So there's some levy in the whole like storing notes and getting advantages from electronic devices for regular REL. So don't get that completely confused.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a
mostly the
minute.
phone calls.
And phone calls, yeah. Make sure you don't take calls because you're just wasting someone else's time. Honestly, frankly.
Correct.
That could still fall into the slow play thing, can't it?
Absolutely,
Yes, it
I think
can.
yeah. All right, so devices used during other than brief personal calls must be visible to all players. So you can use devices during matches in regular REL, but they have to be visible. No, this is talking about calls. I apologize. You just have to be visible while you're taking your call. You can't just like go off into a room and take a secret call. If it's that important, like you probably are gonna have to concede your match before you can take that call.
So the paragraph above it talks about what you can use as.
Aha, I knew it was the next paragraph. I just missed it. I'm sorry. So, yeah, at regular rules enforcement level, electronic devices are permitted, but players may not use them to access information that contains substantial strategic advice and information about an opponent's deck. So,
Can you scroll back up a little, Patrick?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So to your question on boogie boards, if you're okay with that.
Competitive.
The previous incarnation of rules banned all electronic devices, but was relaxed. Only those that are capable of taking and storing notes, communicating with others, or accessing the internet. This allows dumb calculators as life keepers. People can't pacemakers. Brian Kibler can sit and listen to music while shuffling. So with the boogie boards, you can use them because
Because they don't store
They don't
them.
retain
they don't store the notes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And that was a major change is that as it shifted to being able to use more technology that is to keep.
Right.
Because you can get one of those little plastic and magnet boards.
Oh yeah.
It's basically a boogie board, but physical.
Old school.
Just use an etch a sketch.
Oh, slow play, Kylie.
We're good. We're good. So
Um,
tournament organizers can restrict or forbid the use of electronic devices during matches. So you always have to say if you're a judge.
When I'm doing the more competitive events, it's you can listen to music, but if your opponent asks you to take off the headphones or as head judge I find the headphones are distracting for you, I will ask you to take them off. But
Do a lot of people try to do that?
there's a couple enough that it
It's a thing, yeah.
It comes up enough.
Well, Kibler doesn't play Magic anymore, so.
He plays Hearthstone. We don't need to worry about video coverage. We do it here, but it's not relevant here. Just remember that the head judge decides what the store does if that happens.
Life totals.
Life totals. So this is what we're talking about. Life totals. So each player needs to indicate how they are going to keep life totals at the beginning of the match. You can keep track many different ways. It needs to be visible to both players. We talked about that earlier. You also need to be able to keep track of how you got those life totals. So sometimes roll down dice are not the best for that. Probably not technically legal. I don't know. They are. They're fine.
they're fine.
They're not the best. It's not the best way to do it. Shared method is acceptable as long as it's visible to both players. So if you have like your phone.
As long as both players can access it.
That's what I mean. Sorry. Yep.
So you can keep track of my life for me and we just use your pad and that works?
Yep. As long as you can access it.
Yeah.
So that just talks about keeping track of it and being able to get to it. And then if a player notices a discrepancy in the way it's recorded, then it needs to be pointed out right away.
If you, as a judge, notice a discrepancy, ask for players to confirm life totals.
Yeah.
That way you are getting them to
Sure.
say their life totals without saying, oh, you missed this trigger and
Yeah.
causing issues.
Tiebreakers?
This is in the third section.
It
Yeah.
is. So let's close this one. Boom.
This is like board number stuff.
Sweet. So we finished all of
of two.
the section 2. So
Yep.
let's go back to this here. And we're going to go to the sanctioning rules. You ruined it. I can see it now.
It's okay. We've got sanctioning rules and Appendix B.
Yep. Yeah, both of those. No, this one here. We want this one. Minimums. How many players do you need to sanction a tournament? Anybody know? 8? Good boy.
What if it's two-headed giant? How many teams do you need?
How many teams?
4.
Good job. That's basically all that's all that says.
Number of rounds?
Yep. How many rounds for a tournament?
Depends on the number of players.
Minimum of 3 rounds.
Good job. Did you see that? Did you read it?
Maybe.
You did. Minimum of 3 rounds. Two giants, how many? Minimum 2 rounds. And then if it doesn't meet a minimum, then it's not sanctioned. Sweet. Invite only. Tournament people can do invite only tournaments for like premier stores, it says. Premier tournaments is defined by the Magic the Gathering Premier Invitational policy. So you just, basically all that means is you could do invite only ones, but they have to have the sufficient amount of like tournaments to get an invite to us.
Mm-hmm.
Pairing out of the only part I really like about this section. So this, also another section I recommend looking at, because it talks about, I reference this way too many times because I can never remember this stupid thing.
Yep.
It talks about the playoffs and how playoffs are organized as far as the bracket goes.
1, 8, 4, 5, 3, 6, 2, 7.
And it's different depending on draft you're constructed.
What if instead of top 8 we cut to top 4? How would it be?
1,
Would it be
1, 4, 2, 3.
Yep.
Good job.
And that's why 1 and 8 and 4 and 5 are together, because if we cut out the top 4,
Mm-hmm.
then 1 and 4 would still be playing each other in the first round.
Know where this is so you can reference it like I do. Okay, go.
There's more.
There's more. Keep going. So
You
top
say-
4. There we go.
Yep. And then
We talk
there's
about
more.
drafting.
This is nice. Yeah.
So you always draft across the table. That's who your first round opponent would be. So 1 plays 5, and 3 plays 7, and 8 plays 4.
And when you're doing this, you use a random method to seed players.
Seed players, yep.
Which means if you're doing some like a PPTQ, where the play draw is determined by your standing, you might have first place playing second place in the first round.
It's possible. Keep going. And then you seed it this way with the draft. First seed plays 5th, right?
Yep.
And that's how it talks about up there. And then keep going. We're good. Talk about B. You know we need to close that and go back to this thing. So 40 minutes for constructed. No, I said that wrong, right?
The
40-minute
required
minimum.
Oh, there you go. Got it. Thank you for correcting me. It's recommended 50 minutes for constructed and limited tournaments. Single elimination qualifiers are recommended to be 90 minutes, but most of the time those are not timed. And then finals matches are recommended to be not timed at all, ever. But most like PPTQs and big events, they don't time the top 8. And then this, just like the last page, I use it as a reference too because it's really hard to remember these, but you get it eventually for like how much time is needed for deck registration and how much time they need for deck construction. As far as the test goes, try to memorize this stuff. Cause it's
Review it before you take the
Yeah.
test.
Yeah,
they
review it.
usually do throw one or two specific
one or two
questions.
questions.
It is a team draft format. Players have drafted. How many minutes is a recommended amount of time for deck construction and registration?
It's going to be hard to remember that. All of the stuff from the MTR is going to be kind of that way. This is the part I struggled with the most. That's why I recommended it. Because it's just like there's a lot of similar numbers that sometimes don't have a logical reason, in my head at least, of why they do it. Anyway, keep going. Hey look, the head judge has the tournament has the final authority on time limits. However, any deviation from these recommendations must be announced prior to or during the registration. So any changes to that need to be announced beforehand. And we
Okay,
talked
guys, you have 5 minutes to open and build your pool. Ready, go.
about so time drafts typically only happen in like professional and competitive REL. They're fun to do, but they're a pain in the butt.
Yeah. As the judge, you have to announce all these things.
Yep.
Keep your watch, and
There's an app that helps you.
there's
do
an
it
app
too.
for that.
There's an app for that.
Oh my
As
gosh.
long as you don't have an iPhone.
iPhones don't matter.
You've got an iPhone, don't you?
I certainly have an iPhone.
iPhones are
Yeah.
terrible.
Hey.
I promote non-Android.
Tony's just jealous, it's fine.
Alright, I think we're done. Rochester Draft, who does that anymore?
What is
Giant
Rochester Draft? Tell me.
That sounds like fun, actually.
Wow.
Giant drafting. That sounds great. Doesn't that sound like a great time? Anyway.
How does that even work?
You just draft decks.
Next to your person next to is your.
I'm assuming.
Companion?
So.
Well, I'd assume you would place teammates farthest away from each other.
Are you being serious or
then you
sarcastic?
do-
No,
Because
no,
then you do deck
I'm being
construction
serious.
together.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do deck construction
Yeah.
together.
That would
But
work.
pulling the cards.
You pull your cards together, correct?
Uh, I'm not sure on that.
See, there
Could
we
be.
go.
I have to look up the rules on that. I haven't seen any rules on how that works. Alright, I think we're done. Can we go back? Boop. Boop.
Touch screen.
Oop, one more time. Yeah. Okay, now we gotta do sideboard regulations.
We talked about that.
Yep. Limited tournaments. How many cards in a limited tournament?
Minimum of 40.
You can have 40
Sweet.
as a
And then
minimum
what-
in your deck, and the rest of the cards are your sideboard.
Yeah, exactly.
What if I'm playing Vintage Cube and I saw their whole deck and determined their only win condition in Storm is Brain Freeze, the one that mills? Can I throw in 1,000 of each basic land? Sure.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Technically, yes. You can have as many cards in your deck
Yeah,
as...
there's many
It's much
things
easier
to
online.
do.
So where does it allow you to do that in here? It says it in this section here. It talks about
Limited for
limited
sentence.
pools,
Have a minimum of 40 cards.
40 cards.
And
And are
minimum
considered to be a
size.
A player
sideboard.
can have any number of basic lands.
Can request any number of basic land to be their sideboard.
Now, would you have to recommend those cards being your sideboard at the beginning of the event?
No, you can
Oh.
change it. Talks about that in the next one. Participate in limited events. Do not use deck lists. May freely change their composition of their deck between matches by exchanging cards from their deck into their from their deck 4 cards in their sideboard without requiring to return to the normal. So for regular, you can return your deck and like start a whole new deck in the next round. Competitive, of course, you have to bring it back to the way it was registered
Mm-hmm.
in the first game. Then after that, you have free reign to have
So I could have
1,000 planes.
2 completely separate decks
Uh-huh.
and sideboard the one in for
Yeah.
game 2.
Yep. You can also start the next match with a different deck also if you want to.
Right.
A third deck.
That's why drafting is so fun.
Wow, third pod.
Sweet. Sweet. I think we're done. Any questions?
Any questions from chat?
The chat's been crickets, so...
Super quiet, huh? Did I forget something, Kai?
One minor technicality, I don't even know if it comes up in the test, but it was beaten into my head. When you present your deck, it means 2 things very specifically. Do you guys happen to know what that is? Probably not. I mean, who would
This
know?
deck has been sufficiently randomized.
That's one of them.
Yep, we did talk about that.
And the other one is, you're presenting a legal deck.
Yes.
So whenever you present your deck, those are the 2 things that you're saying. This has been sufficiently
So-
randomized. It is a legal deck.
So if you present your deck, can I ask you to how many cards you have in your sideboard?
I don't know that one.
No.
Look at that
because
self-satisfied smile.
back when it was 15 cards...
How would
Yes.
you handle that?
Because you're not required to have a sideboard of 15 cards.
Sure.
So, yes,
So
you
when
can
you
ask
present
that
your
question.
deck, do you present your sideboard?
Oh, you do present your sideboard. That was in the thing.
Yeah.
And you must be permitted to count it in order to make sure that there's no more than 15. Is that accurate?
So I would handle it. I'd probably ask a judge. I'd probably just call a judge and be like, "Hey, do they have a legal sideboard?" Because then they'd be like, "How many cards do you have in your main deck?" But you also know how many cards are in their main deck because their library count is known information at all times, right? So technically, yeah, you can ask how many cards are in their sideboard. It's kind of sketchy, I think, if you're like, "Hey, how many cards do you have in your sideboard?" But you shouldn't use that as a way of getting strategic information. I don't know why I doodled on this board. I just have a white thing.
This is why we don't get whiteboards, Tony.
It's true.
This is why Paragon takes the whiteboard from us.
Yes. All right, I think we're done. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm just doodling.
Okay, wonderful.
So next week we will be here. Eric is going to be a special guest. He's an L2 in the local area.
Oh no! Oh gosh!
And he is awesome.
Cat butt.
Check that out.
And then you will never get to have to listen to my lectures ever again. Yay. Unless I do this again.
You might. We'll see.
I'm pretty sure most of the people here were volunteers.
It's true.
Sweet. What do we got going on this week at Paragon City?
This week at Paragon City Games, we have Team Constructed tomorrow night. Tonight is the wackiest of Wednesdays. We're doing $7 drafts.
That's like half
It's
price.
It's like half price. It's insane.
That's super insane.
It's insane. So come draft tonight
If you're in the area.
if you're in the area.
Or fly in too. That's cool too.
That works too.
Yep.
Doesn't work.
Don't do
Don't do
that.
that. So
The next month you can come.
yeah,
December.
no, it's every beginning of the set release. So
Oh, it is?
the week,
Oh,
yeah. So the wackiest of Wednesday is the week after the newest set is released. So
Okay.
But every Wednesday's wacky.
Everyone is wacky. It's like a $10
It's like
draft.
$10 draft, which is great.
It's just value.
Yeah, sweet.
But this is insane.
So tomorrow is what? What do we have?
We have
tomorrow?
team constructed.
And Popper, right?
So no Popper. It's every other week. It switches off between Popper and team constructed.
Sweet.
FNM. We're gonna start streaming our standard tournaments on Monday night as well. It's another announcement. So
That's good.
make sure you give us a follow and subscribe.
Yeah, you
Tune in.
guys have subscriptions now.
We do now. Yep, that is.
You can just say, "Shut up and give me your money."
No.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, no.
It's shut up and take my money.
Yeah,
is what
exactly.
I should say.
That's what it is. Is oh my gosh, your guys' content is so great. Shut up and take my money.
That's what I say,
Yeah.
actually. I'm kidding.
So, anyways, that's all. Have fun drafting tonight, guys.
Thanks.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
If you want to take the level 1 judge test,
Please reach out to us.
reach out to us. You need to judge 2 events. Paragon
ASAP.
City's happy
Before
to
you take the test? Yeah.
before you take the test. Yes.
Preferably we check supervision.
Yep.
When you get into the water system.
Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good night.